Okay, so good afternoon. I am Anto Budiardjo. Welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern as we try and figure out what the future lies for smarter buildings. It's really good that you're here with us or watching the video. In case you're wondering who we are, our profiles are listed on mondaylive.org, so head over there. And just to make the point that views expressed here are personal, not of any company or organization. Keep that in mind, please. And let's use the Zoom chat as for questions and comments throughout this hour, and we can make it as interactive as possible. And then the last thing is that this slide deck is also available on mondaylive.org right there on the homepage. So this is our fourth week talking about readiness as a theme for June. And our agenda today is we're going to talk normal news and trends chit chat, and then we'll talk about readiness from the perspective of readiness for the AI future that is becoming really sort of clear, or becoming clear to all of us, I think. And hopefully have some nice discussion after that. But before all of that, I'm going to hand it over to Ken Sinclair. Ken, what's going on?
Thanks, Anto. Lots. I think the big thing is our subject of readiness and native AI have triggered a lot of interest in what we're doing. We've hit some of our highest impressions. Those are actually impressions on my postings on my direct site for a week, and you can see we're up 43% just in that last week. It's dropped off again now. But this is a time of the year when people are kind of planning holidays and stuff like that. So to see that increase was fairly significant. Over the first article is on Wicked Wednesday, where we craft Monday Live. We all got talking about trust, and I think we all came to the conclusion that we all were where we were because of trust we had created. And our newest contributing editor has written a great article about trust, and I think that's worthwhile and sets the scene for what we're going to talk about later. Just had a peek at Anto's slide. Looks really great how he's blending that into our future readiness as well. Kelly did the summary of last Monday's Monday Live, June 15th, and there's some interesting summaries there, I think is worthwhile. And then she offered another post on basically we're so focused on the return on investment, and the article kind of floats around the fact that we've never invested in this before. The whole AI addition to the building, and it definitely adds value that we don't really understand. And so we then have to start trying to ascertain what the greater asset value is by adding this to the buildings. And I think that's an interesting discussion. And Kimon made some comments about that as well, that he always kind of wondered how come we were return on investment is sort of an investment in the past, and we're basically portraying, which is our theme, readiness for AI future, that we're going to do something we've never done before. And just some little by the bys is just bought a new vehicle, and it came with Android Auto, and that then came with Gemini. And so AI got added right to the vehicle, and that enhances very much the value of the vehicle to me, because it does a much better integration with my phone. And so when I get into the car, it automatically starts up my phone. All my discussions, all my music, all my things that I want to do are there, setting calendars and all that kind of stuff. I think that is an interesting model that we should investigate further, because I think what we're looking for is Android for the building, or Apple for the building, where we walk into the building and it just interfaces us with the building best it can. And the thing I like about it is it actually takes over the knobs and dials on your car and lets you actually do things that you normally would have had to do on your phone. So there's some real interesting stuff going on there, I think. Kimon wrote this article. We're all control freaks. I think that's obvious, but I think it causes us problems sometimes is that people stop listening to us because we start talking and they have no idea what we're talking about and they just smile. But we need to understand that that's who we are and how we're going to change, and that we need these betweeners, the people who kind of understand what we're doing and kind of understand people and buildings, and they can kind of carry our messages about how important what the stuff we're doing is. The other one is Keith wrote his article, and he's talking about semantic model assumptions, a different perspective. That's a great idea, and it's a good article, well worth reading. The other thing that came out of that is that the investment we have in existing buildings is heavily based on Microsoft. No matter how you kind of want to slice and dice it, it's been around long enough that a lot of the majors are well vested in it and in Azure databases. And there's other ways to do what we're doing. There's some pieces missing, but that being said, the ability to rapidly move to something greatly improved from what we have is so tempting that I think that's what we really want to do. That led us to an article that came out of Beirut, I believe it was, about BACnet MSI semantic gap and why the independent integrators hold the key. And so they're talking about how they can kind of, in my mind, almost reverse engineer some of these standards such as Haystack and Brick, and ever how the manufacturers have webbed that in their programmed that into their operating systems. If AI can kind of figure that out and has a great insight to how their operating systems work and is actually able to pull out another operating strategy. So that's pretty interesting. And that kind of gets backed up with another article that I noticed that was going by talking about BACnet IP is the one right above it there. And we have this great investment in BACnet IP. And of course, it's probably the most common format used by the master systems integrators. And there's a lot of opportunities within that on how they can quickly get access to this information, not necessarily using knowledge graphs and RDFs, but and maybe not getting the full potential, but they're getting the potential of, because there's such an investment in software and installed systems, I guess. And the whole retrofit market is so lucrative and is so susceptible to being enhanced with AI. So anyway, we're going to try and reach out and try and find some of these stories and bring them into automated buildings to try and get a bigger picture of what's going on. The one at the bottom there that I wanted, there's a couple there. There's the top trend was from Suha, who teaches AI at Stanford. The top trend is this vibe coding, and I'd heard something about that. But the whole idea is you just start working with AI, and eventually, by asking enough questions, it starts to pull the coding together of what it is you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it. So it's an interesting trend of what's kind of evolving. Then the last one, I think it's out of India, trust before autonomy. So even though we're having these discussions for the first time, there is discussion out there about this, and everybody agrees that AI needs trust, and it needs somebody to be its trust broker. And I think that's who we are. We're the trust brokers. Back to you, Anto.
Thank you, Ken. We have Rick now. Rick, you've joined us.
I have, just in time to say that the slide has not been updated. But the first Thursday call will be July 2nd at 3 o'clock Central. And That'll be again a town hall opportunity for discussion on any of the CPRSB topics. And I think we're going to have more detail on the cybersecurity working group, and certainly also the UDMI working group, and maybe some other ones. But the focus of the town hall will be, or the date will be July 2nd, 3 o'clock, and cybersecurity will be one of the primary topics. And again, this is the page this is the two-pager that we've got that sort of highlights the existing working groups. And I think for the first week in a while, we don't have any new working groups that are being added to that. So we're going to have updates on all of them, but if anybody's got any questions, shoot me a note or raise your hand and ask away. Otherwise, back to you.
Actually, I have one thing, Rick, relating to the working groups. So we have every Friday the Semantic Building Working Group, and this week for the first time, it seems like we're heading towards having BuildingSMART International attend that working group. In other words, the building side standard is coming together, focused on what's happening with the semantic buildings and the semantic modeling and the semantic bridge, and also bringing a standard called BDNS, Building Device and Asset Naming Specifications, which is used by Google for their facilities worldwide and several other ones. In other words, we're looking at merging. So there's a lot of activity there in the working groups with Cloud BIM and the semantic buildings.
Yeah, I should say that I hope that on July 2nd, we've got some more details on kind of an evolution or the next evolution of the semantic buildings working group, and some of that focus that you're talking about relative to the naming and the mapping of ontologies, which is some really important big picture stuff. And I don't want to pre-announce anything, obviously, but it seems like that the importance of what's happening in the semantic buildings group is becoming more and more obvious. So, yeah, Friday will be a fun dive into that new potential teaming up with BuildingSMART.
And we've already brought in their standard, their BDNS standard, into the GitHub repo and the what we call the RE1 model, the RDF files, and the Revit files and the Cloud BIM. So we're actually bringing their standard already, and it's happening actually in the next few days.
Okay.
Awesome.
That's good. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Kimon. Any other thoughts? There's an ASHRAE winter meeting coming up next week in what's actually going on this week and next week. And the
summer meeting in Austin. I'll put a link.
Summer meeting. No.
I'll put
Did
a
I
link
say
in
winter meeting?
Yeah. We're 6 months off, but that's okay. We're moving so fast we can't keep track of seasons.
Yeah.
Right. So you're there talking about what, Kimon?
It's handover to life cycle and the PAE work and everything else. This BuildingSMART stuff is coming into it as well too.
Okay, good stuff.
Can I ask a question?
Jim, just hang on. Jim, you're there as well. You're speaking.
I'll be talking about the BACnet Cloud Collective and how BACnet interacts with the cloud. And Anto is also speaking. What are you speaking about, Anto?
I'll be speaking about the same topic, about cloud, and going to use the IBB as a reference of how to frame that.
Great.
Ken, sorry, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, no, I just had a question. It's probably my ignorance and stuff. Is there somewhere an index of what is on GitHub? Every week somebody says I've added this to GitHub. How does one understand if you're working on a particular piece of stuff that the coding will be there, but it's how does one unravel it? How does find out exactly what resources exist on GitHub for the unwashed?
I'll put a link into the chat. There's a primary page that kind of lists all the activity, then there's subgroups within that.
Ah, super. That's what I'm looking for. That would be great if you could provide a link to that. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. Let us move on then. So we are talking about readiness again in June. We have one more week of this, and then we'll move on to a summer break. But before that, readiness. So in the first week of this, on the first, I think there was a general discussion about readiness. Kimon was referencing the PAE building as a sort of a framing of what was being done to get ready for that. And then we spent the week talking about AI native and the fact that AI nativeness is something that will eventually happen and things become AI native. So getting ready for that is another sort of really good discussion that we had. And last week we talked about AI readiness for AI at the edge. Again, fun-filled hour of different perspectives on the edge. As it were. So we're talking about readiness for the future. And on our Wednesday planning call that Ken actually alluded to, we talked quite a lot about how we're going to frame this. And a lot of the framing that we sort of discussed on Wednesday was really about trust and the sort of the fine aspects of trust that we don't often really get to think about or talk about. And so I think the way to sort of frame this is that try to think about the concept of trust as effectively changing or morphing as we become more and more AI literate, and there's more and more AI in the world. And I think the way to frame this is really this, that we have become used to trust as being something that we have as individuals. They're reputational in nature. All of us on this panel have a reputation, and therefore trust associated with that. Everybody in the audience as well, pretty much everyone in business. So this is how we work today. And quite a lot of times when we do business, it's based on that trust. Trust on the person being able to do something. And obviously the person may well have a company behind him or her. And so the trust gets sort of laid on the company in addition to the individual, which is kind of how we've been working. You trust somebody because they work for that company and be able to deliver whatever it is that they promise. And there's no reason why this kind of trust is going to go away. For as long as we are here, I'm pretty sure there'll be humans getting involved in trust. I think the bigger question is really when agents start to become autonomous, then what happens to the trust fabric? How do you trust an agent that is autonomous? Because one way of looking at the trust one way of connecting it to our way of thinking is that I supplied that, and therefore you should trust the AI agent. That will work to some degree, but at the end of the day, it's the AI agent that's going to be there, and in the future, there's going to be thousands of them or even millions of them, and they're interacting with each other. So how do you fundamentally trust them? And how do we even construct a sort of a way of thinking about this? Because the creating products and services that spin up autonomous agents is most likely going to be how we're going to sort of move on to the in this sort of in this evolution. So I think this is kind of the framing. I think there's it'd be really sort of good to get a sort of a discussion on how trust will evolve from how we have been used to it and into this new world. So I'm going to shut up and open the floor. Who cares to start this conversation?
Is this any different than the millions of actuators and smart controllers out there right now that are not AI driven?
Yes, they make their own decision. And an actuator will only do what is designed to do autonomously. It's going to close or open. And an autonomous agent, by its very nature, can do anything. It is not constrained.
So you're talking about unconstrained AI where we have the problem.
Well, they have to be constrained. But even when they're constrained, how do you trust it? How do you trust them at all to do anything? How do you trust them not to go rogue?
How do you trust so I just don't, I'm having a hard time with the difference between that and a BuildingSMART energy valve that is autonomous and making local loop control decisions just like any controller that we've had for decades. So yeah, it's a stretch.
So agents are agentic AI and agents are being deployed as as this new capability of AI. My comment isn't about that, but it's about you just framed it as whether we will trust the agents that are acting on our behalf or not acting on our behalf. But I think the bigger problem is the structure of how do the agents learn to decide whether to trust other agents. And that's what's already the big question in AI right now isn't do we trust AI? It's does AI trust AI? And how do agents decide who they can negotiate with? Each one of the agents, I mean, this isn't really that complicated. It's like agents in professional sports or anything, agents in for actors or whatever else. They act on behalf of their client or whatever, but when they go to negotiate between each other, between the agents, that's where and what's happening is that those agents are acting on our behalf millions of times a second right now, and we don't necessarily know what those agents are negotiating. They're not always checking in with us about what they are attempting to do. So the framework of do we trust the agent is one thing, but do the agents know how to communicate with other agents is actually where the sweet spot of AI, the future of AI is setting up to be the most important part about the future of AI.
Well, of course, in cybersecurity, we have roots of trust, and that same concept can be used here as well. In fact, Anto, if we were looking at connection profiles, how do you handle the trust issue between agents in that case?
Well, the framing of a connection profile is the conduit by which two agents, or to any other systems, but we focus on agents, communicate very specifically for a very specific purpose that has been predefined to perform that purpose and nothing else.
So they're constraints, they're premeditated constraints in the system, right? Another way of doing these kinds of things is having a mediator in the system, that root of trust, who bequeaths to individuals what they have the right to do or who they have the right to trust, right?
Yeah. Yes, that is the whole sort of PKI infrastructure that allows that to happen.
Right. So, I mean, is this really that different a problem in terms of trust for interchange of information or behavior or acting than the cybersecurity problem?
I believe it is, and the reason for that is in cybersecurity, what you're typically doing, and this is not total, but what you're typically doing is providing access and authority for somebody or something to do something. And usually that access is granted when you start that process. In other words, you get an access to go into a system, into a building.
Right.
But usually, because it is a cybersecurity, because it's considered a security thing, once you're inside, quite often, because if you're only thinking about cybersecurity, you can then do anything you want inside.
Right.
And the same applies for an agent, right? So you can sort of argue that, okay, so just by knowing that there's an agent there and authorizing that the agent can act, right, isn't that enough, right? So that really is a cybersecurity response to all of this, because yes, it's enough to make sure that the agent is whoever it says it is, but it does not, the cybersecurity barrier does not stop that agent from doing anything that it can do down the road, because all you've done is you've allowed that agent to become somebody that does something.
Right.
In society between humans, we use the law to perform that function. Is there some reason that that these agents won't be programmed or set up to obey the law somewhat in the way that humans do? Or don't?
So
I think that's the question, right?
they're application specific though. So I'm just not aware of any, I'm not aware of anyone out, unless I missed something, I'm not aware of any AI company out there that's doing real-time control of buildings assets where the agents collaborate. Like I have a chiller number 1 agent, an RTU 2742 agent. They don't collaborate and they're constrained. They only have one task: optimize the zone temp.
They could.
Well,
They
I'm
would
speculating.
like.
Does that really exist anywhere? I'm just asking a question because it certainly doesn't exist within the realm of our go-to-market strategy. Like application specific, they don't collaborate.
Oh, well, there are. We're already
right now.
yes, there are.
Can you name what company is doing this? Where they have collaborative agentic agents controlling buildings.
That's what we're proposing. That's where we're going. That's actually, we're on the doorstep of doing that with multiple different systems at the PAE building. That's the direction. That's absolutely what's being set up.
Other thoughts or perspective, Steve, Tracy, Kimon?
I guess my initial thought is let's try to solve the fundamental problem of ensuring that these agents have access to the data they want. And first, before we start talking about them, so that they can do the job that that particular agent is designed to do. To Keith's point, he designs his agents with a specific goal in mind that is actually specified and quantified, right? And so that agent needs certain access to certain data in order to do its job. So up to now, a lot of our conversation is getting access to the data and solving that particular problem. And so if companies who use AI agents do a good job of specifying what their agents are capable of doing and live within that sandbox, then I don't think we have a problem to resolve in that sense. I hear what Rick is saying. I just think we should walk, before we run. And so let's try to make sure we've really nailed the issue of getting access to the data that the agent needs and not trying to have any old agent do whatever the hell it wants at any time.
That's irresponsible. I mean, I would earn trust if my agents could actually be non-constrained. It's like the little restraining bolt on R2D2. Like that thing, our agents can't do anything that we don't enable it to do.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
In our domain, we can absolutely do that by doing that, but that's not what's happening in the larger world of AI. So just to hit pause for a second and turn your focus to where AI is actually going in the
Well, I
world.
focus on AI in general for buildings, Rick, not AGI or stuff where AI is being played out. That's not my business. I'm focused on AI as it applies to buildings, and I thought that's what we were talking about.
Right. Yeah.
We
Well,
are.
Yes,
there
like-
is an influence on
Right.
people's thinking because of what's going on in the general market space, I think is the point, right?
Right.
And then there's I think if I'm hearing this right, we're talking about two different things, right? There's the trust to get access to the data
Right.
first, and then once you have access, there's a different kind of a trust that has to do with constraints that the agentic agents need to have in order to do control properly and in a trusted manner, which is what Keith is saying, is what we already do potentially.
Kimon?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. One, I think if we go back to and you don't have to show the slide, the one that you were showing Anto earlier. If we strip away the AI agent discussion for a minute and just talk about trust in general between people, we have established ways of how we trust, right? We have relationships and whatever. And just last week, there was a presentation that was on with Drummond Reed from the Linux Foundation that's talking about decentralized trust. And his slides kind of laid it out that it's for people, it's for devices, and it's for agents. It's kind of the same thing. Do I trust this person to go and turn off the switch and turn off the electricity in the building because we're overloading whatever? Or do I trust the agent that's been trained to do that, like Keith's agent knows what to do specifically at that point in time? And what the Linux Foundation, Drummond was proposing, and there's going to be other material on this, is that you set it up to have a decentralized trust that you can start. I don't know if he called them tokens or what they were called. There were ways of saying, I trust this person or this device or this agent to do this thing. And if it's decentralized, it's easier to manage to scale it when you have thousands and thousands of agents exploding. I think the mixing the concept of trust with agents right now kind of clouds the discussion a little bit, because obviously there's certain things that agents need to do. But I think humans and devices is the same thing. How do you set the rules? If you know what the rules are, then you could tell that person, don't go down there and turn off that master switch to the building of electricity unless A, B, and C happens, or don't turn down the temperature or whatever. And you would say the same thing to a device that's sitting alone and has agentic capabilities, or you would say it more to an overall network of devices in a building like the PAE building, of how they would start interacting. And I think those rules are the most important, regardless of who's actually acting on it, whether it's agentic, whether it's machine, or whether it's human. And if we have that decentralized, and it's easy to query and say, why did this happen? Well, there was a rule, a business rule that triggered this. Well, we need to change that rule because that rule actually caused harm, or the tolerance wasn't enough, or whatever. That's my view of it. And if we split it up like that, I think it becomes much easier to understand and discuss as agents start coming into the discussion.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Kimon, that's exactly what we're seeing. I mean, literally, just Friday, I brought on another customer, Cal State University, LA. They have a thermal energy storage system where they're making ice at night. And yeah, I sat down with the JCI tech and the chief engineer, and we discussed the boundaries of operation. Okay, so we're going to alter the condenser water set point. Chiller number one, old chiller number one, that's 40 years old. It's got a broken oil pump. So Keith, your agent can't make the temperature less than 78 degrees of the condenser water, or refrigerant's going to migrate in the machine. Boom, it's a rule. It goes in there. It's immutable. Done. Like, this kind of stuff happens all the time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to earn that trust and have the great reputation that we have. So this is normal stuff. You're going to work within the framework in agreement with the customer.
It's not magic, right?
It's not magic. It's not.
Yeah, I would say two things, but Keith, to your point, you're defining a scope very clearly of what the agent can and can't do. I'm curious, does your software log its actions?
Absolutely. It's an audit trail. It tells you the rationale.
Very good. Because if I was writing the specification, I would insist that any agent working, has an audit, can be audited fully for any
It's a
accident.
prerequisite, Steve, and it's actually a requirement. We're undergoing SOC 2 compliance right
Yeah.
now. So you got it. We're in
You got to
hospital
do it. Right.
HIPAA compliance,
Yeah.
laboratories, like that's a
You
yeah,
have to, exactly.
do that.
Okay.
Of course
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can just keep everybody from coming into our industry, that'll be beautiful.
What was
We're
that?
control freaks.
Cynical bastard. Will you please?
Well, actually, we're doing a good
not worried
job
about that.
preventing other people from coming into our industry right now.
Yeah, come on in. Yeah, I like
We're doing a really good job of it.
Yeah, come on in here. Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
Right.
Well, this is where what ASHRAE is doing and what NIST is doing by recommending being RDF and knowledge graph compatible. It means that somebody can write an agent and not know a thing about our industry. And this is what's happening, is that people
it
are
already does it. Yeah.
right. This is where the rules have to apply to somebody who doesn't know a thing about it, but has realized, oh, look, I can create this agent and it can, oh, I just found this RDF about this chiller and about this solar panel and about this battery system or whatever. And they can write an agent that does whatever the heck they want it to do without attending a single Monday live session or attending a single C4SB working group. They can now do that. And that is where the rules have to apply beyond just all the things we know how to do to make buildings work with the tools we've used for the last 50 years. We have to have rules that work with the new technology. And that's where, when I said earlier about, and you could have, there might be two people that come into our industry and they both write agents, and those agents now are sitting in our existing buildings, looking at our new knowledge graphs. They become aware of each other, the agents do, and they decide to start working together. The agent that's on the solar panels, the agent that's on the battery, the agent that's on the automated logic, or the building automation system. Oops. They all become aware of each other, and then they need to have rules amongst themselves as to what the access to the data. To Steve's point, we actually created a way to have access to the data. If everything gets moved to RDF or something similar, we've kind of solved do we have data access? Now, that's not done yet, but that's the path, right? But now the agents that have come in from foreign lands all of a sudden are working on these different RDFs. They become aware of each other, and they're like, wow, it'd be really cool to know what's happening with the solar panel.
We actually did that on the, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask Ken, what do you think the chances are from people outside of the industry to come in, as Rick has just sort of said, with their agents and services and whatever? Are you seeing any of that?
We're seeing it. I haven't seen anybody that is completely lacks knowledge of our industry there. I think they all have enough of a respect to know that I think BACnet teaches you, if you start unraveling BACnet, then you say, why the heck is this so complicated? Then all of a sudden it dawns on you, I think. So a lot of them they understand that they're going to have to deal with that. The more educated ones, but yeah, there are definitely going to be some new people. The other thing that's going on is the globalness. The globalness of BACnet is amazing. And so we've got people all over the world working, and they know how that works, and they're kind of reverse engineering it from that. So they're not completely unwashed. I don't think that's going to be a big problem, and people just coming in and saying, I'm going to apply AI to this building. I wonder what a building is. I don't think that's going to happen. But there'll definitely be a learning curve. And the other thing they'll lack the trust of having somebody who can unravel it Actually, Anno made a great comment on Wednesday about we're the people that break things. And the biggest difference between us and other people is we know how to fix them when we break them because we understand the underlying systems. And so what these new people need is they need to get somehow connected to a person of trust that can fix it when they break it. It's as simple as that.
I will say I have seen new companies that I've never seen in and around the industry. You know, if you go to pretty much any conference now, you're going to see company names that you haven't seen before, and several of them that I've talked to are coming sort of with an AI first approach. These are software people who know AI but don't necessarily have the subject matter expertise in our industry. I have talked with a couple of them for sure.
I was going to add a use case we did again with a PA building, but we have the RDF file of the PA building, which started from a full-blown BIM, has the backnet endpoints, whatever, a lot of really technical stuff. And then we created an RDF, and I handed it to Duncan Green in the UK, who knows nothing about BIM, and knows nothing about the PA building, knows nothing about what we were doing. And I said, here's RDF, add your KNX, which I knew nothing about as KNX standards, add your points to this and give it back to me so I can track the IDs that are there. So do I trust you because I gave you the RDF, you gave me the file back, the IDs matched, and that happened within less than an hour when we actually started. I said, let's do this. And I sent it to him and he sent it back. Very simple test. And that's the way AI agents want absolute kind of understanding. If you give them something that's clear, then they don't have to infer and guess. It's very absolute, and he gave it back. So this is not an AI agent example, but this is this is a human-to-human example with the RDF file. But that's how AI agents want to interact too. And you multiply that by 1 million or whatever. This is how you scale it, so it doesn't have to dig through a full-blown BIM and a full-blown this and go find this, hallucinate and make inference. It's all absolute. A is connected to B. You're connecting another C to this, and it's going back into the RDF. It has meaning and context, so I can trust it and put it back into our system.
With very little, if any, human touch involved.
Zero. It was chat. We didn't even talk. I said, here it is, give it back.
But you were involved as humans, so.
Yeah, the humans were involved to get the chatting going. But if we take ourselves out of the loop.
But the whole thing could have happened totally without the human.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In your case, it did, but.
Yes. Humans tested first.
In about 100 milliseconds or less.
That's right, exactly.
So somehow all of that 1 million interactions in that 100 milliseconds or whatever it is has to be 100% trusted.
Yeah.
With no humans in the loop and no humans taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm. So we can do better stuff. Keep track of seasons.
Okay. So 20 minutes.
It wasn't long ago that when we were all talking about agentic AI and it was coming to our industry that, I was the one saying, no, we could control agents. Agents are going to need to pay attention to the law and understand property rights and all that kind of stuff. And everybody else on the call was saying, no, you should see what agents are doing already. And, I was the one saying, well, we're going to have to teach them the law. We're going to have to teach them to be accountable. We're going to have to, and the fact is, well, that hasn't happened. Agents are running amok amongst us.
Where are the examples for that?
Examples of agents, AI
Running
agents.
amok, agents running amok in buildings.
They
I'm
are
not talking
coming
SpaceX
to
or Anthropic
buildings.
or anything else. I'm talking buildings, right?
There's no barrier to entry to buildings. We're converting all the buildings to our the plan is to open up buildings to standards. They are already, BACNet's already open up, so they're already starting to creep towards it. I think what we're going to hear on Friday is more examples of where agents are being either used or being considered. I'm not saying they're already here, but they're at the gate. or actually some of the agents are already at work in some of our projects. Um, but the examples of, again, again, it was just a few weeks ago, you were all saying, oh no, we're not going to be able to stop the agents from doing whatever they want. Where's Shelton when we need him? He was, because I was like, oh, they can't do a real estate transaction. And people were like, oh yeah, they can. They can actually go to the courthouse and file a real estate um, uh, transaction. And so I'm confused because I thought that we had all agreed that agents are going to be able to do anything and everything at just 1,000 times the speed of what humans can do. And now we're saying no, but they're not going to do anything with our pumps and chillers. And I'm like, I think that's I'm finding shoe on foot, but I'm finding shoe on other foot here. But I think there are ways, and that's what we're trying to advocate for. If we structure the data, the systems and the data, then putting the governance rules on that is actually straightforward. The people who need to be involved in structuring the governance and the rules and the trust, a bunch of you are on this call. All I'm describing is that process of getting all the devices and all the data up to a point where there now needs to be that governance. But what I'm hearing is, oh no, nobody's worried about whether there needs to be any whether agents are going to be running amok. And I don't think that that's really what we believe.
Rick, that's a false argument. I mean, of course we care if agents run amok. So that, I mean, don't put words in our mouth. Like that's not, come on, let's have some constructive criticism or feedback or whatever. But of course we all care about that. That's a straw man argument. Okay.
Yeah, and I was beginning to worry this
Like,
was
seriously,
going into immigration and custom enforcement.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's that,
Well, we do have agents that are at work in our buildings already, and as Tracy said, there's other companies.
You haven't named one instance.
So guys, you are basically suggesting in this thought leadership group here that agents generally that are running in the world that's outside of the HVAC BMS domain should never touch the HVAC and BMS domain. There should be a barrier around this, around buildings, so no agents can touch our agents. Is that how you think we should go?
No, I don't think we should build. I think that anybody who would be foolish enough to hook Chat GPT up to a central plant and cause a failure or something, it's self-policing. They're going to lose. This is a reputation-based industry. So you do that one time and word gets around and you're out of business. So you're not, it takes care of itself. Yeah, go ahead and do it and see what happens.
Right.
You won't be in business for too long. Like, that's the point. I mean, we're just speculating. I mean, reputation-based means reputation, right? It's what you do and what you say you're going to do and what you really do.
So there's an opportunity for this group to help start to put in place how trust is determined by agents. And I'm suggesting that we actually have working groups where we're trying to do that part. And Anto's going to Geneva to work on that stuff. If we should all sit back and hope that nobody uses ChatGPT on a chiller plant, I don't think that that's what we should be trying to do. I don't think that that's the way that we show leadership. That
we need to be proactive, is what you're saying on some of this stuff, right? That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think best practices should be defined. We should work on best practices. But I also think from a legal standpoint, consequential damages, when you look at terms and conditions and software licensing, most all of everybody, bails on consequential damages. We are not responsible for any consequential damages, or the limit is some small number. Your Microsoft Office software, your Microsoft operating system, they don't bear any responsibility for consequential damages?
In the 90s, we were hooking up spreadsheets to the JCI Medicine's platform doing changing set points. I mean, is Microsoft responsible for that? Of course not.
Of course not. Right. So I'm just saying, if agents, quote unquote, run wild, then who owns, where are the lawsuits going to go? I mean, you talked about reputation, but I would certainly say that an owner who lost major pieces of equipment or they lost their building temporarily, they're going to sue.
Yep.
I would.
They should.
They should.
Keith, has anybody sued you with your agents? Yeah, no, right?
No.
Your agents are fine.
Yeah.
So you're responsible for
That's
that.
how we stay in law. That's how we stay in business.
Yeah, I think so. So I think ultimately we're responsible because we set these things up. So we have to, like we said, we have to figure it out. We have to be proactive, and there's a risk. Yeah, we might set something wrong. Like I pointed to those Waymo cars they have problems too, but they still run around.
Hey, David, can you inject some sense into this conversation? Some adult supervision, maybe?
Absolutely. So from majoring in philosophy, I realized most of the arguments people have are actually around the definitions of the words we use. And I think we're all on this call very much aligned, but I think we're, arguing about hypotheticals that aren't clearly defined. And I think we have a very strong precedent with managing this trust already on IP networks by setting up virtual private networks where only the AV kit can talk to the other AV kit and only the lighting control can talk to the lighting control on this subnet or that subnet. So there's a precedence already in IP management where this kind of trust is happening. And in those subnets, no other devices are allowed based upon their MAC addresses. So there's a really good precedent for how this is already taking place in a cyber secure enterprise environment. And I think when we talk about being AI ready, it really is going to come down to us being able to share with the industry naming conventions and data format conventions that can allow this exchange to happen. And I know a few large corporations where two BMSs were put in two separate buildings that had the exact same naming convention, and then they had to go and rename everything in the second building because they were now doing a portfolio-wide management thing. And no two things can have the same or should have the same naming conventions. So I think we're on the right path, and I think the debate is healthy. It's common sense to say we're not going to let agents run amok. It has to be a controlled playground where this stuff happens.
Yes,
and
I'm not going to let the little Commodore 64 controller run amok either.
I mean, it's all a matter of scale and
otherwise. Like we should have these constraints should be in place already, and they are. It doesn't matter.
What's kind of pathetic about the controls industry is it's secure by default because it's not talking to anything else.
Yeah.
And, it's not on a network and it's just a standalone thing in many cases. So I want to just stress and keep in mind that we are looking at solutions that work in any size building in any market segment. And we have on this call people who have done the most complex buildings like labs and hospitals and the like. And we've also done really simple buildings like schools or warehouses or something like that. And so what we need to understand, though, is how do we make this scale so people can look at things from an enterprise or portfolio perspective. And I think having tools that do analysis across a portfolio are going to be extraordinarily powerful. And this is where we need the simple data from all of the buildings in order to do that portfolio-wide or campus-wide or fleet-wide, however you want to use the term, analysis. And that's, if you have your stuff tight for an individual building, and then you can scale with multiple buildings. And I think if we can keep that in mind at all times, we'll be on the right path. How is that, Anto?
I think it's great. I think scaling as a fundamental thing that we have to always remember is very, very important. And scaling for a long time. This is not just for the next few years when I'm around or whatever. It's scaling, fully scaling. Okay. Anybody want to wrap up this session?
I thought that was a pretty positive note to end on, actually.
Yeah, well, and I was about to say, like, once again, like I'd rather spend the hour on focusing on positive stuff and not doom and gloom. Like, I feel like I'm gonna shoot myself or something. Like, we should stay on a positive note and celebrate the successes of AI, not the doom and gloom, like everything that could go wrong. To prevent it. Like, I just don't feel like dwelling on the negative stuff. Like, we should be celebrating success.
100%. And that's what we're talking about is the excitement about AI coming to our space, and the new companies that are coming to our space are going to look for our guidance, and they are looking for our guidance. And so it's really exciting. It's very
what's working now? Yeah, that's my point. What's working and how can we extend that?
Well, we also are going to be welcoming a lot of newcomers that are going to be looking for new capability. And we're excited about that part too.
Yep.
And contributing new ideas. And what's clear to me listening to this hour is that we are well and truly in the midst of the Collingridge dilemma that we spoke about a couple of months ago. If you remember that. That's the dilemma of innovation. New innovation is really difficult to govern, which is really the same thing as trust. And as we move towards the innovation becoming more and more adopted, it becomes easier, but also becomes harder because the control is kind of all over the place. At the early phase, it's really difficult because there's not enough material to think about the trust. So we're in the middle of this Collingridge dilemma, the way I see it,
but it's
which is natural.
It's all about the transfer of trust. I think there's a responsibility we all have to accept, is no matter what we do with AI, it's on us. It's what we're doing is we're saying, I think I trust this new AI method of doing stuff, and I recommend that you use it. What we've done there is we've taken our trust and laid it on top of what we're doing with AI. So it's a big responsibility, I think. So we have to do it wisely.
And as these new people come into our industry, like, I think we got to use the honey approach and not the stick. They should want to join us and take our lead, because we're showing them a valuable way and a beneficial way to go for the benefit of them and their customers.
And we should also remember the quote of one US president a few decades ago: "Trust and verify." So I think with that, we'll wrap up this Monday Live, and wishing you all a great week.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Okay.